Hello, Rabbi.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Stephen. I'm John.
Trying to see if this YouTube is working.
Hello, Rabbi. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Hi,
John.
John.
Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Steve.
Hi, Stephen.
Trying to do the Rambam. How did I get James Bond here?
Hi, Kent.
Hello, Rabbi. Hello, John, Stephen, Jeff.
How's it, Ken?
Hi, Kent.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Okay. Can everybody see the text?
Yes.
Yes,
Let's see if I can make it bigger. Now we've lost the screen. I tried to make it bigger.
We can still see it.
Oh,
Huh?
yeah, Rabbi.
Tried to
I
make
just I make it bigger on my screen.
Okay. Okay, so please feel free to help yourselves. Okay, we got to start because this is a huge chapter, no less than 35 halachas. So I don't promise that we're going to get through this whole thing in a half hour, but I'm going to really have to move it. So forgive me. And we may have to, we may not manage everything. Right, the army's on, guys. Thank you. Okay, so just a quick word of introduction, as you probably heard, because this is not the first chapter dealing with these matters, but as I said in the reminder, life was very different in those days, and they didn't have anti-nuptial contracts like today, and women didn't have careers like today, and women were not independent like today. In the olden days, if a woman did not have a father or a husband to be her guardian and protector and provider, she was in big trouble and could be easily exploited, even abused, God forbid. The Gemara says a woman in those days would rather marry a jerk than not marry at all, because without someone to look after her, she really wasn't not in a good way. The concept of waiting around till you're 40 to marry for love, for the earth to start moving under your feet, did not exist in those days. It was a very, very practical relationship. Please God, love came. As somebody once said, you don't have to marry the woman you love. You have to love the woman you marry. Very important distinction. But as a result, the husband took full, absolute, total, and utter responsibility for his wife's well-being, for providing food, clothing, shelter, conjugal rights, as we discussed. And furthermore, if in fact a woman would get sick, or God forbid, be taken captive and held hostage, as was common in those days, the man was obligated to give every penny in his estate to heal his wife or to rescue his wife from captivity. Even the shirt off his back, everything. So he assumed full and total unconditional responsibility for her support, health, and well-being. And therefore, he had some benefits because he accepted full responsibility. So if she went and got a job, she should give the salary check to him. And if she found something, found a wad of cash walking in the street, it should go to him. I mean, after all, he's looking after her completely and totally, so she could help him out a little bit. So that was quite moral and quite reasonable and quite, quite the norm of the time. Of course, in our modern situation where women have become far more emancipated and independent, life is very different. But please understand this as an introduction to this whole chapter. Now let's get a move on. So therefore, when it comes to inheritance, number one, the husband takes precedence over any other person with regard to the inheritance of his wife's estate, in view of the fact that he has assumed total responsibility for her. When does the husband acquire this right? As soon as she leaves her father's domain. In those days, it was unheard of a woman to live on her own. She lived in her father's house until she got married. Didn't matter how old she was. In general, people got married younger in those days, which was not a bad idea. So what does this mean exactly? When a woman has been consecrated, meaning he said the magic words, Harayat Mikudei, behold, you are consecrated with this ring in the presence of two witnesses. So now they're halachically married, but they wouldn't live together for some time still. So once the woman has been consecrated and her father hands her over to her husband or his agents who went to pick her up and bring her home to him, then she is now her husband's, and therefore should she die on the way, God forbid, before the chuppah, her husband would still inherit her estate, even though she's been living until now at her father. Similarly, if the father and the husband, okay. If, however, the woman and husband are still accompanied by her father as agents on their journey, they haven't yet gotten to his place, then he doesn't yet inherit her. Similarly, if the woman is an orphan, or she's older than 12 years old, or a widow, she's going from her father's home to her husband's home on her own initiative. She doesn't need her father to accompany her. Once she leaves her father's home, so the husband would inherit her, not the father. Now, number four, even if this marriage is not a halachically sanctioned marriage, let's say a Kohen marries a divorcee, which he's not allowed to do, as you know. But he does it anyway, against the Torah law. The interesting thing is, in such a case, the marriage is effective, meaning it's not a kosher marriage, it's not a blessed and sanctioned marriage, but it's a halachically valid marriage, meaning that the marriage takes place. He needs a get. She needs a get. They need to do a get. Every day they don't do a get, they're in violation of the Torah. Whereas if a man puts a ring on his mother's finger or his sister's finger, it's not valid at all. So a Kohen and a divorcee or something, it's an effective marriage, even though it's a prohibited marriage. So if he marries a woman with whom he's forbidden to have relations, if she dies during his lifetime, he inherits her estate. Similarly, a man who marries a ktana, a minor girl, after her father's death, inherits her estate. By contrast, a mentally capable man marries a deaf woman, deaf mute. He's not entitled to inherit her estate when she dies. But if a deaf mute marries a mentally capable woman who dies, then he does inherit her estate. And here's
All
the
of
reason.
these are scarves and things. It's good to fold them and have them.
Excuse me, we're in a share. Can you please mute yourself, or I have to mute everybody?
Rabbi, could you please scroll the text up? We're stuck on number 1. I'm stuck on number 1.
Everybody?
Yeah,
Everybody stuck on number 1?
Me too.
me too.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I've been scrolling the whole time. I'm on number 4. Let's see what I can do here. All right, let me close this one and start again. Bear with me a minute. Can you see the text?
Yes.
Yes, but
Can
it's
you
still
see
on.
it? Is it
That's
scrolling
better.
down
Now-
now?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we're on this paragraph, second paragraph of number 4. So we said if he is mentally intelligent and she's a deaf mute, he does not inherit her estate. If it's the reverse, that he's a deaf mute and she is mentally capable, then he would inherit her estate. And here's the reason why. For she is capable of understanding and married him voluntarily, and in doing so, she gave him the right to her estate, because she's an intelligent person, unlike him. Number 5, a ktana is a minor girl who was consecrated with her father's consent, but married without his consent, meaning, so he put the ring on with her father's consent, but then she had the chuppah without her father's consent, in his presence or not. Her father has a right to object because she's a minor, and therefore the father is the guardian and custodian of a minor daughter. And if the girl dies, her husband would not inherit her estate. Number 6, the Go'anim, the sages, ruled when a woman falls sick and asks her husband to divorce her so that he will not inherit her estate. So she's getting sick. Maybe she's terminally ill. She realizes her days are numbered. She does not want him to inherit her estate. She wants it to go to other people. So she asks him to divorce her. Her words are of no consequence, even if she agrees to forfeit her ketubah, her antenuptial. Even if she says, I hate him, I don't want to live with him. We don't listen to her. She's not judged as a woman who rebels. This is a good thing. In other words, the Rambam says we are pretty sure that the reason she's saying she wants a divorce is not because the marriage failed, but because she doesn't want him to inherit her. And if they had a marriage till now, then she can't do that. Okay, now number 7. There's something called nichse tzoin barzel and nichse milog. So the way it worked is that a woman comes into the marriage. She may well have an estate of her own when she marries this guy. Maybe she inherited her late father's estate. Maybe somebody gave her a gift before she got married. In those days, women didn't have careers or work on their own and have their own savings accounts. So that's why I'm giving those examples. But she comes into the marriage with her own, she might have property, whatever. So there's 2 different categories. The Talmudic terminology is nichse tzon barzel and nichse milog, which means properties or possessions which are like iron and not negotiable, and possessions which are negotiable. I'll explain as we go along. If she dies in her husband's lifetime, her husband inherits everything. But the way it works is that he would, nichse milog, she retains the ownership of the principal, the land, and he has the right to the produce. Because after all, as we said before, he has assumed total responsibility for her well-being up to the shirt on his back, and therefore he has the rights to the produce, the fruits of her farmland if she comes in with property, or the rent of her houses or buildings if she comes with that kind of property. Now, if the woman sold property classified in this after she married, even if she became the owner of that property before she became consecrated, her husband may expropriate the income from that property from the new purchases throughout his wife's lifetime, because that belongs to him. So she can sell the property, the principal, the land or the buildings, but the benefit thereof, the fruits or the rent, goes to him forever. She can't change that. If she died as a lifetime, he may expropriate the land from those purchases without paying them for it, because he has inherited. If the actual money that the woman took from the buyers exists, the buyers get their money back. 8. I've got to move quickly because we got 35 halachas to get through today. When does this apply? With regard to property which the husband knew about, but if it was somewhere else in a different country and she didn't know, and he didn't know, then the sale is binding. Similarly, if she sells it between her consecration and the consummation of the marriage bond, remember in the olden days it could be a year between putting on the ring and going to the chuppah and living together, the sale is likewise binding. Number 9, when a woman signs over all of the property to another, whether it's a relative or not, before she marries, even if there is a provision that if she is divorced, if she becomes a widow, this present is nullified, her husband is not entitled to benefit from the income of this property. If she dies in his lifetime, he does not inherit it because she gave this property away before she was married and therefore did not become his. Furthermore, if she gave away a portion of her property or all her holdings before she married and wrote in the deed of transfer to the recipient, acquire the property from this time onward, although the recipient does not acquire complete ownership until the woman expresses her consent, her husband is still not entitled to benefit from this property and will not inherit it. 10. Okay, now we have the case of a Yovam. So what happens? You may be familiar with the, we haven't got time to go into detail, but the law of Yibum and Chalitza. If a man dies childless, and so the biblical law was that if he has a brother, the brother should marry the widow of his deceased brother to rebuild his late brother's family and have a family with her. If can I ask everybody to mute themselves, or otherwise I have to mute everybody? Okay, I've unfortunately had to mute everybody, but you can unmute yourselves if you have a question. So Yovam is the brother of the deceased husband, and Shomeret Yovam, a woman who's waiting for her Yovam to marry her according to the right of Yibum. If they don't want to marry, then he would give her chalitza, removing a shoe. It was a whole ceremony like a get. We actually spoke about it, I think, in one of my previous shiurim. But here, he's going to marry her, but he has not yet, the brother has not yet married her. She's waiting. Maybe they're still sitting shiva or whatever for the deceased husband. So when a woman is waiting for her Yovam to marry her, she may sell or give as a present property that she acquires during the time she is in this status. Until he marries the Yavam has no right to benefit from the property that she brought to his deceased brother's household. If she should die in this status, her heirs from her family, her father's family, inherit it. The Nichse Milog and half of the other properties. Her husband's heir inherit the money due her by virtue of her ketubah, and the remaining half, and they are responsible. The husband's family is responsible for her burial costs, and to put up a tombstone, etc., which costs money. 11. The money due a Yavama by virtue of a ketubah is considered to be a lien on the late husband's estate. So, when the first husband married her, he gave her a ketubah. That means that she's entitled to the 200 zuzim, which is quite a significant chunk of money. And should he predecease her, as he did in this case, then she is the first claimant on the late husband's estate before any debt creditors. So, therefore, Yovam is not entitled to sell any of his late brother's property because she gets it first. If he sells the deceased property, gives it away as a present, divides it with his brother, whether before or after Yibum, his actions are of no consequence. It is really obligatory to make this available to her, so then she can collect her ketubah money from her late husband's estate. 12. When a man marries his Yibama, so the brother now marries the widow of his late brother, and there's produce growing on the land left by her husband, the produce should ideally be sold, and the proceeds used to purchase land from which the Yovam will now derive the benefit that accrues, so the new husband has the same arrangement as the old husband. When, by contrast, the deceased left produce that was already harvested, money or movable property, it does become the property of the Yovam. He may use it as he sees fit, and she has no right to object. The rationale being that the woman's right to collect the money due her by virtue of a ketubah stems only from an enactment of the rabbis, which cannot prevent the Yavam from taking possession of his brother's property, again, because he is now taking full and total and absolute responsibility for her food, clothing, shelter, and health and everything. 14. Okay, let's say the first husband did not have to give her a ketubah. Why would that be? There are some exceptional cases. She could waive her ketubah. Okay, I can't find the footnote immediately. Let's not waste time. Let's say she waived her ketubah. The Yavam acquires the brother's and may sell portion as he desires, But now he has to give her his own ketubah. But seeing as she was married before, she deserves 100 zuz, not 200. So a virgin bride would get 200 zuz. A divorcee or a widow would get 100 zuz. That law applies till today. 15. When a woman sells the nichsei tzon basel, whether to a husband or others after she marries, her act is of no consequence. Similarly, if her husband sells landed property belonging to his wife, no consequence. So he has his, and she has his, and then they have the joint stuff that she has the property and he has the fruit thereof. Should the husband sell movable property, although he is not allowed to make such the sale as binding? Okay, really, he's supposed to leave the property for her and just use the fruit. If they both sell that property, the sale is binding. 17, if she sells it to him or gives it to him as a present, it's binding. She cannot say, I didn't want to do it, he forced me, or I had to do it to keep the peace, shalom bayis, in the house. But if there's other property, she may offer such rationalization and claim and try to cancel the sale. To explain 18, when a woman sells her nichsei tzon basel to her husband and gives them as a present, her husband does not acquire this property. That's land or movable property, real estate or chattels, because he's only entitled to the fruits thereof. Let's go to 19. Rambam says, it appears to me that a woman is not entitled to nullify her statements based on the rationale that I did it for shalom bayis. I was sort of, he twisted my arm, I had no choice, so she could claim that to renege on the deal. To what can this be compared? To a man and woman who formalized an agreement in which she forgoes the responsibility as taken for property that had been classified as nichsei tzon basel, where she has the land and he has the fruits. And made it nichsei melog. For the husband is not bringing a proof for the sake of taking possession, but merely wants to free himself of the obligation to pay a claim his wife will issue. If by contrast she gives him movable property, the husband does not acquire it, then the wife may rationalize that I did it under pressure. So it was we call mekach tois. It was under false pretenses, or she was compelled, he twisted her arm, and therefore it's not a valid sale. 20, when a husband sells the right to the benefits from land of loans is of no consequence. The sages granted a man the right to the benefit from his wife's property, the fruits thereof, the rentals, but so that he will spend more generously on the household expenses and make her life more comfortable, not for him to sell it. 21, if the woman possesses financial resources that she brings into the relationship, her husband may use them for commercial enterprises to improve their lot. He can't sell them, but he could use them. Let's go to 22. Okay, if a woman was injured by someone else, all the money that is ordained to be, and now that someone else has to pay her damages. We learned in Parashas Mishpatim, if somebody beats someone up, they have to pay 5 different things. They have to pay damages, medical expenses, loss of income, embarrassment, and one more. 5 different things. So if a woman was injured by someone else, what that someone else has to pay should be used to purchase land from which her husband is then entitled to the benefit. So the land remains hers and the benefit is for him. If a woman inherits servants while she's married, even if they are old, they should not be sold We're talking in the olden days when servitude existed, because they bring honor to her family's household. Anybody have a domestic been working with them for 25 years? She's like an elder in the household. Similarly, if she inherits olive trees or vines, but not the land on which these trees were planted, if they produce enough to pay for their upkeep, they should not be sold. They also bring honor there, like their own olive trees, the yichus, status. If not, they should be sold as firewood. Land should be purchased. And then again, she keeps the land and he gets the benefit thereof. 24. Married woman inherits produce that is still attached to the land. It becomes the husband's property. When the produce has been uprooted, it should be sold and used to purchase land. And again, he will have the benefit of the fruit thereof. When, however, a husband divorces his wife and there was produce still attached to the ground, it belongs to the woman. If it has already been reaped, then it belongs to him. 25, a husband is obligated to provide for the sustenance and all the needs of the servants and livestock that belong to his wife. They must work for him. He's entitled to the benefit that accrues, but he is responsible to support them. Therefore, a baby born to a maid classified as nichse milog, that's the fruit. So she comes in with this maid servant, then the maid servant has a baby. So the maid servant belongs to the wife. The baby belongs to the husband. It's like the fruit of the land. Or a calf born to a cow, the same. If, however, the husband divorces his wife and she desires to pay the worth of a child born from her who is classified and take the child as a property because she wants to honor, she is given that prerogative and he cannot deny her the opportunity. 26, if the woman brings utensils or maidservants to the household and they're valuated at 1,000 zuz, and then their value increased, now they're 2,000 zuz, the price went up. If the woman's husband divorces her, she's entitled to one, and he's entitled to one. If she wants to pay for the other, she may. When a man gives a present, a gift to his wife, regardless of if he gave her land or money or possessions, and she brought land with it, he is not now entitled to the benefits of that land because he gave her the land. It's completely 100% hers. He does not get the fruit thereof. Similarly, a man gives a woman a present on the condition that her husband not, if a man, another man, not her husband, someone else gives her a present on condition that it's all for you. I don't want your husband to have anything from this. Then that is binding. Similarly, if the woman sells the rights to her ketubah to someone else, the money she receives belongs to her and her husband is not entitled to derive the benefit. So it's like, what do I call it? Futures. She's speculating on futures. The ketubah, she will get the ketubah when? If he divorces her or he predeceases her. If she predeceases him, she never gets the ketubah. So whoever buys the ketubah, there's a risk over here, because if she dies first, this ketubah is worthless. So it's a gamble. 28. When a calf born from cattle is stolen and the thief is apprehended, so the thief has to pay double. That's the penalty of the thief. He has to pay 100% fine. Who gets it? The woman gets it. If a man injures his own wife, we learned last week, marital rape in the Rambam's day and long before. Today there are still, I said last week, we were discussing this, there are still Western communities today, never mind Eastern, where marital rape is not an offense. Rambam 800 years ago, look how advanced Jewish law was. Marital rape is an offense, and the husband would have to pay damages to the wife. But it does not be rape if he abuses her, gender-based violence, if he just beats her up, God forbid. If a man injures his wife, the entire amount he must pay, the damages, the restitution for pain and embarrassment, etc., as I mentioned before, all belongs to her, and the husband is not entitled to any benefits from this. 29. If a husband sells his property that he owns to his wife, if the husband knew about the funds with which she purchased the land, the sale is binding. If he didn't know that she had this money, she's hiding money from him. She had it stashed away in the cupboard somewhere under the mattress. Now he could say, hey, you've been hiding stuff from me. I was entitled to stuff here. So here, she does not acquire this land. The husband may argue that it was concealed from him, and rather these funds should be used to purchase landed property from which he will have the benefits that accrue. 30. When funds are discovered in a woman's possession and she claims they were given her as a present, husband claims they stem from the fruits of her labor and it should belong to him. So now they're having an argument. Who does it belong to? The woman's claim is accepted. Why? Because we have a principle in Talmudic law, Hamoitzi Mechaveira Olav Oraya. Possession is 9/10 of the law. What is it? Is that the line? So if she's got the money, he has to now, the onus of the burden of proof is on him. He has to prove that it's his. And unless he can prove it, so it remains hers. If the woman claims the funds were given to her with provision that her husband have no control over them, now she has to bring proof that such a provision was made, because that's not the norm. The rationale being the prevailing assumption that a husband does have the right to the benefits, so she would have the burden of proof upon her. 31, if a wife tells her husband that these funds, you gave me this as a present, she would take a rabbinic oath that her husband gave her. He denies it, or he says he can't remember, so she takes an oath, and then her husband is not entitled. 32, okay, this is another law. Then in general, if a woman or a servant or a minor child comes to you and says, do me a favor, won't you look after this item for me or this money for me? I don't have where to keep it, or I'm going away. Do me a favor, can you look after this? Keep this for me in safekeeping. It's not recommended that we should accept this responsibility. Why? Because they may be hiding it from the true owner. So 32 says one should not accept an article for safekeeping that was given by a wife or a servant or a minor, because it might belong to the husband or the master or the father. If one transgressed and accepted such an article, you return it to the woman. If she dies, you give it to her husband, rather than to any people from her previous family. If one accepted something from a servant, you give it to the servant. If he dies, you give it to the master. If you accept it from a minor, interesting law here, you should purchase a Torah scroll with it. In those days, it didn't mean a whole Sefer Torah, but it meant a sefer, a book that we would study from with the proceeds, or an article that will provide the minor with some benefit. Because we don't trust him with money, he might just squander it. Following rules apply. If at the time of their death they say the article I gave for safekeeping belongs to so-and-so, if the person caring for the article operates under the presumption the person who entrusted him is true to his word, he should then carry out the command as was given and give it to whoever he said he should give it to. If he's not sure, then he should give it to his heirs. 33, if a woman has financial resources sufficient to purchase property from which the husband would derive the benefits, but they disagree with regard to the property which they should purchase, he suggests buy this property, she wants another property. A property should be purchased that brings a large revenue and requires little upkeep, regardless of whether it's what he likes or what she likes. We do not purchase any article that does not renew itself, meaning that it should keep giving a benefit and show fruits of its worth. Otherwise, it could go up in smoke and be nothing left. 34, when a woman brings to her husband a goat to milk, sheep to share, or a date palm whose fruit she is entitled to take, although she is entitled only to the benefits and not the principal, her husband is entitled to these benefits, although the principal is dwindling. Because, it takes a long time to get to grow the hair back and so on. Similarly, if she brought utensils or articles of clothing to his household that were minchse melog, where she would own them and he would have the fruit thereof, he may use them, wear them, or use them in any way appropriate until the articles themselves are destroyed or they're worn out. If he divorces her in the interim, he doesn't have to pay for anything that became worn out because he was entitled to the use, the benefit thereof. Finally, number 35, the rabbis issued the following ruling. A husband takes responsibility for the diminished value of Nichse Tzon Basel, that's the non-negotiable land that she has. Nevertheless, if such property exists when her ksuba is due for payment, the woman must take it regardless of its condition. If they're no longer fit to serve their initial purpose, it is as if they were stolen or lost, and the husband is obligated to pay the value appraised originally at the time of the marriage. This is the common custom. Whenever a man marries, he accepts responsibility for the woman's dowry as contingent on this custom. As we said earlier, that he has total responsibility for her upkeep. And if she is ill, he has to pay every last penny, even the shirt of his back, to heal her. If she's captured, God forbid, taken hostage, he has to pay the shirt off his back for her ransom. You can't just say, I can't afford it, sorry. So on that basis, just as a husband does not pay for the depreciation of the article, so too does not take the appreciation of the property if it increases in value. As it is, so it is. As it is when she comes into marriage, so it is when she goes out. And finally, a husband has the right to compel some of the servants and maidservants who belong to his wife to serve him in the home of another woman he has married after she's gone. This applies regardless of whether the servants are classified in Nichse Melog or Tzon Basel. The husband may not, however, take these servants to another city without his wife's consent. Okay, went a bit over time, but we finished all 35. Sorry it was so quick and brief, but no way to get through such a long chapter. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourselves.
Just to say, Rabbi, that I'm always in awe of the depth and the breadth of what the Rambam goes into. He covers so many possibilities and instances.
So we are doing the Rambam's magnum opus. He wrote a number of works. This is his magnum opus, the Mishnah Torah, which goes through the whole Torah. The Rambam, in his introduction, as you may remember way back in the beginning, he says, if you have the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, and this book here that I've just written, basically you have the whole Torah in brief. Obviously, there's the whole Talmud, but the Rambam collated these laws from the Talmud. So my description of the Rambam, as I've said before, is he was a human search engine. Long before Google, the Rambam had it all in his mind, and he was able to collate all the laws from the entire Talmud, which is all over the place. It's not organized by subject, and he collated it all into the world's first organized, categorized encyclopedia of Jewish law. So you have the Chumash, and you have his encyclopedia of Jewish law, and basically you have everything. Okay? Of course, we have an infinite Torah before and after the Rambam to this day. But this was his intent, and this is his claim to eternal fame. Okay, guys, I got to run. I have a 13 Principles of Faith class tonight at 8. We're talking about prophecy, the Rambam's 13 Principles of Faith. You're all welcome to join, part of the Sydenham Shul Zoom, and all welcome. Cheers. Have a good rest of the week.
Rabbi.
Thank you,